Hi guys, welcome back with the Primal boys, the favorite boys to come and hang out with. They like to hang out with me, so I appreciate that. How are you guys?
Good, always good. How you doing?
Good, Steve. We good?
8 out of 10.
8 out.
Leave some
Okay.
room for improvement, but
Okay. Are we feeling an 8 out of a 10 because the snow is melting, or are we getting more snow? How are we feeling with winter? You guys almost done or no?
the sun's out. I'm not ready for it yet. Stay
Yeah,
hermit.
I'm never ready for winter. Fucking
Yeah.
hate it.
For you guys, when does winter stop?
We don't know.
Never.
It's always a gamble. You never know.
Yeah.
It should have been done by now, but it's still lingering.
It's still lingering. So we have all the snow is melted. It's sunny outside, but it's still really cold. So we had a bunch of days of rain over the weekend, and I think we're supposed to get it for this weekend too. But I'm hoping it's spring. I'm ready for spring. I'm ready for the warm weather. I'm ready to get outside. My kid needs to get out of this house. All I'm saying. Love him to death, but my kid needs to get outside. Do your kids love the snow way more than you do? Do they like spring? Like, what season's your favorite for your kids?
I have a 2.5-year-old, so I think the jury's still out on that one. Like, he's kind of, the snow is like, he's into it until he gets wet a little bit, and then he's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I think summer is really the go-to because where he can just go outside with no shoes. That's his favorite. So
no shoes,
just barefooting all over the place.
In no neighborhood,
just in a diaper and bare feet.
Yeah, that's what I'm wearing.
I was gonna say, isn't that what you guys like to wear too? Just
I didn't think we were talking about the kids here.
Matt, what about you?
Yeah, my kids don't care for it that much. But it depends what we're doing. Like if we're going sledding or something like that, they're all for it. But that doesn't last too long, especially when it's freezing outside and you can only withstand 15 to 20 minutes out there.
Yeah.
We're definitely summer bodies. Like we have a cottage that we go to, and the moment we can jump in the lake, we're in there all day. So that's really what summer is for us. We spend weeks up at the cottage, which makes it difficult to get content out for Primal and stuff like that. But it's worth it, the exchange,
Yeah. Well, it seems like you make it work, because I know that there's been, videos of you on the deck. How long have you had that cottage for?
Well, it's in the family. I married into it. So Alexa's mom designed it in 2012.
Damn.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we've had it for a long time at this point.
So does all the family go meet in the summer, or is it like you guys are there for a little bit and then
we've
someone
kind of
might
taken
come
over it? Yeah, it's kind of like our cottage at this point, and then they'll kind of show up randomly for a few days here and there, but we're the ones that kind of just like set up shop for weeks and weeks. We're the only ones with young kids in the family, so it's more reasonable for us to kind of just show up there, and then they just kind of like back and forth. They'll take a day off of work or something. It's only an hour and a half out of the city.
Oh, okay.
So it's close enough to be able to drive up for a day, 2 days kind of thing. But yeah, we really go hard. We stay there for so long. By the end of it, the kids are like, "Can I go home?" They're actually bored of it. So I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is paradise."
Yeah, if you guys have winter, for months and months on end, I'm sure getting out to the lake is very enjoyable. And but everybody's like that. Like, I can't wait to get home to my own bed. Like, I want to get home to my own toys, my own bedroom. You know what I mean? It's always 100%. Nice to get away. But do you guys ever feel like when you come home from vacation, it's like a vacation from your vacation kind of feeling?
Where you need a week on the back end. You need a week. Yeah. Well, sure. It depends who you're with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't just 100%. Jump back into work. Yeah, absolutely. So the Open is done. We survived the Open. Matt, I know you weren't able to do too much because of your injury of, you rehabbing that and that kind of stuff. Steve, how did you do in the Open?
I did okay. I had a couple of, I did not get like a wheelhouse workout. Usually I get one. I have like a weird strength in the overhead positions, and anytime there's like handstand push-ups, wall walks, I just like, that's my bread and butter. Did not get that this year. I saw those in the quarters, but so I didn't get a wheelhouse workout. But I place around the same I place every year, just outside the 90th percentile. So I'm content with it. It's not really something I've been hugely focusing on. Kind of been jumping into the marathon, ultra marathon scene, high rock scene the last 8 to 10 months. So it is what it is. The aerobic base is there, and I'm content with that.
From a fan perspective as well as a coach perspective, do you feel like it was a good test? Like, I mean, you don't have to go too much into like the nitty-gritty programming part of it, but just from a fan's perspective, there's been a lot of conversations about, the time cap was pretty much the same. It pretty much was the same kind of movements across the board or whatever. So Matt, just for your perspective, do you feel like it was a good test, or do you feel like we were kind of missing something within this open?
I do feel like the programming was definitely weird about all this, but again, keep like with a grain of salt, because I didn't actually perform any of them. I'm being a good boy for my injury. And I'm actually proud to say that I just today reintroduced full depth squats into the training. I'm 6 weeks into the rehab process. So things are going well, and it paid off to not kill myself with the open for that.
Congrats on that. I know how much that must just feel so good to get there. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you. I was, being very intelligent with how I approached it. But as I was saying, I felt the programming was a little weird, but I mean, the workouts were fun to watch. That's for sure. I definitely felt like they were exciting to watch. Especially the 26.3, I found that one enjoyable. 26.2 was really cool with, all the overhead stuff and just the gymnastics work. I felt that was interesting and entertaining. But yeah, the programming was a little strange this year, I found.
Yeah, I felt like I was just running as fast as I can in each workout because the time cap was so aggressive for us everydayers. You know what I mean? And then the movements were so similar in a way. I was happy to have the opportunity to work on my gymnastics on the second one. But those chest to bar completely took me out way faster than I thought they would. I thought I would have been able to kind of get through them faster and still be able to my goal was to get to the rings, and I got nowhere near that. Like, it absolutely torched me. But I was very surprised, not that we needed to have that 1 rep max lift that they like to put in. I mean, I love a good complex. I think one year, what was it? A deadlift, a power clean, a hang power clean, and then a jerk. I loved that. I thought that was really cool to put that at the end of like a 2-parter. And people were saying that there was strength in it because, the 135 or the 115 for the women, and then the dumbbells and stuff like that. But then other people are saying we didn't lift heavy. Do you feel, Steve, that is the misconception, kind of tying this into Primal, of like, what is actual strength training? And we don't always have to go to a max lift to actually work our strength training.
Yeah, I think you definitely have a point there. I really think that people want that isolated lift. I don't know. I have a general weakness with the barbell. I'm not super strong with it. So if I don't see it, I'm not usually bummed. But I can see the parallel between like, yeah, I think we can make that connection between, getting strength and in range of motion is not just about like that one max lift. It's about being prepared for, building capacity through reps, volume, etc., and being able to maintain good mechanics. I mean, we've all seen people break down through repetitions and volume of thrusters, right? You see that that midline starting to collapse, the elbows drop, all of a sudden the lockout overhead is not quite as crisp as it was on the first weight and things like that. So I think ultimately it is kind of like strength, but I think it rarely feels like that because again, we're trying to pick up that barbell. Our heart rate's at like 180, right? You're gasping for air. So I don't think it ever feels like you're expressing your strength unless you're absolutely conditioned. So for the elite athletes, it probably doesn't feel that way. But maybe for some of us, it does because we're so exposed. We're basically running on empty that just to lift that barbell one more time, to catch it into the bottom position and push it overhead is just like that is a strength movement in itself, both physically and probably mentally and emotionally as well.
Yeah,
it's definitely
absolutely.
more like strength endurance the way that one
Mhm.
was structured,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like especially with the climbing load with the barbell. 135 is not like objectively heavy for cleans, but well, I mean, obviously that is a subjective thing, but objectively, when it comes down to like heavy barbells, that is not it. But under high level fatigue and whatever else, it's going to feel heavy as shit after a certain amount of reps, right?
Yeah.
It's different when you're looking at like absolute strength, like one single rep, or just a complex or something like that, as opposed to like strength endurance, which I think that was more of what that was. It's like, how well can you maintain your composure under a somewhat heavy load for an extended period of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we can even take the dumbbell walking lunges. Everyone's like, for women, 35 pounds, but normally what are we doing with it? We're taking it from the ground overhead, or you're taking it into the hang position and going overhead. How many times are we actually practicing keeping that dumbbell overhead as well as lunging? What do? We usually, they're here, or they're, next to us, or if you have a barbell, holding a barbell in the front rack position is way different than holding those two dumbbells as well as going overhead. So I feel like if you don't work those, that's complete shoulder strength that you're testing to be able to sustain the technique and the proper form while you're doing that. And so I could see how that was even a breakdown if you're not prepared for that. So I saw that we actually did hit strength, but I think you guys are right. It's more of that endurance strength, because a lot of times when we talk about strength training, what is it? It's a 5x5, or it's a 5x3, or it's a 1 rep max, and then we test the endurance in a Metcon. But this one literally was like, yes, it's a Metcon, but we're going to test it by the volume of reps that you have to do. Doing those cleans for me was like, oh, first round, not too bad. Second round, I'm like, wow, these are starting to feel heavier, and then especially the thrusters, because you're also doing burpees. So you're hinging and you're using the legs and you're using your arms. And so it all like was such a challenge, but we didn't have that one strength, which I was hoping that we might have been able to have that strength. Not that I needed to do deadlifts. And I was very happy that there were no deadlifts in this open, because I was able to, do each one or whatever. But I think we tested strength, just not like you guys said, in that like 1 rep max capacity.
Yeah, I now that I'm thinking more from a mobility perspective, which, not to say that I wasn't already, but now that you're mentioning 26.2, and it's kind of bringing back my thoughts when I initially went through it. I think a lot of people forget as well that like mobility isn't just about getting into those ranges of motion. Like, it affects the entire chain, right? So when you're doing something like that overhead walking lunge, if you don't have proper mechanics, think about what it takes from you to be in that overhead position,
to hold that and sustain it throughout the workout.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you can't even lock out the elbow, you're in a bent arm position. You're like, this is as far as I can go. And then you don't have the requisite thoracic mobility to be able to even get into like a direct upright position. You're going to be contorting yourself. Then try to breathe through that. Right. If you're an athlete who has, let's just say you have perfect mobility, which probably doesn't even exist, but you're going to be able to move much more efficiently through that. And you're going to finish that lunge sequence probably way more ready to take on those snatches than you would if you did not have that mobility. That's going to be such a challenging distance to do if you have crap mobility and you don't move so well. But the better you have, it's like, it just becomes like an efficient movement. And that's one thing that I found this year specifically. I've gained so much awareness, proprioception, and stability in my overhead position like that I was able to move through that, put down the dumbbell, and it's like, I'm not like gasping for air because my midline was all contorted and tried to push that dumbbell overhead. I was in a nice, efficient position, and I just moved through it, no problem. I was like, I think that's solely because of mobility. You could isolate everything else in terms of, my endurance, my strength, etc. Just the fact that I gained mobility in that area just made everything so much easier.
Yeah. The fatigue seems to build up so much slower right? Like when you're able to actually get into the positions appropriately, everything's locking out more effectively, and you're not like, think about like a super stacked overhead position. You could kind of like hold that position relatively easily given a certain load, right? So everything's just kind of lined up perfectly. You're not needing to exert nearly as much force or effort in order to sustain that position. So it's like you're reducing the amount of fatigue that's building up over the period of time that you're doing the workout for. So, that's a really cool result / win to see from mobility training. But like that also goes to show that mobility, if you improve your mobility, you naturally start to improve your recovery rate as well, because basically what you're saying there, Steve, is like you're reducing the amount of stress being placed on certain areas throughout the workout, meaning you're naturally going to recover significantly faster as a whole as well. So you're going to be able to withstand more stress across a week span.
Yes.
If you improve your mobility, as opposed to if you're restricted, like again, if you're kind of bent elbow a little bit, just even holding that position for like just the one set of lunges, you're already going to be like taxed in the tricep, taxed in the shoulders, and you're gonna be like, these snatches are going to fucking suck. I mean, they're going to suck anyways, but you know that like you're going to burn out so much faster, and singles are going to show up a lot faster. Like single reps are going to show up a lot faster or earlier in the workout than they probably would have.
Now, I haven't done my L1 in a long time, but like if we can recall the 10 physical traits, right, of fitness, kind of like one of the definitions of fitness, flexibility and strength being two. I don't believe that they have mobility in there. I think it's flexibility, but you could use mobility as like a placeholder for flexibility and strength. That's part of fitness, right? Of course, we know that through the movement standards kind of thing, that if you cannot squat below parallel, that's probably something to do with fitness. And then you need to increase fitness, which is going to be increasing flexibility so you can squat below parallel and make everything standardized and testable. But I think we forget that if you apply the strength piece of that to becoming stronger in your flexibility, mobility, then that's going to help your fitness. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's what you mean, is that you're being exposed in those areas. It's just to make everything so much easier, because you're not just killing yourself to keep that position.
First F-bomb, 1622, new record. And it wasn't from me. You.
Oh.
Was it you or me? I don't know.
It was one of you guys. It wasn't me. Usually I get about 2 minutes and then I say the first F-bomb. So it wasn't. It wasn't.
So is 1622 like the longest it's ever taken?
Yes. Yes.
That's
again,
good.
usually
a bunch of
me. It was Matt.
It
was Matt. It was Matt.
God damn it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the mindset shift that Primal really has gotten me to pay attention to, is that it's not as much as we want to pay attention to the singular joints or the singular muscles on how to strengthen them and support them and whatever. Everything is connected. It's a reminder that literally everything is connected. And so I wanted to, go back to one of your hot takes, Matt, where you said you'll get better shoulder mobility by fixing your thoracic spine, scapula, instead of doing those random bullshit shoulder stretches. But that's pretty much what you're saying. Like, if you're only doing banded stuff, you're not actually preparing the shoulder, the tricep, the bicep, the elbow, the forearm, the hands, the wrist. You're not actually preparing anything. The lats, the spine. You're not preparing anything. You're just like, I could put my hand up like this with nothing in my hand. Can I put a dumbbell overhead, keep this line throughout my entire thoracic spine, and then lunge? Can I do that? That's where mobility really comes into play.
Yeah, if you look at how the body works, it's all within a specific sequence, It's not just like, sure, the majority of a movement might look like it's coming directly from one joint, being the shoulder, the hip, the knee, whatever it is that we're performing. But the body moves in a sequence in order to allow for these things to happen. So if you're getting into that overhead position, your shoulder never got there without your scapula moving. Impossible. So if you're not figuring those things out, like the prerequisite movements that are required in order to get there, then you're missing so much gain or potential gains, and you're leaving them on the table, right? And if especially when you start looking at like big movements such as like an overhead squat, overhead lunging, squatting in general, like that's a lot of different joint functions happening in one sequence, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, it's not just like, this is how I see movement basically. It's not just a specific joint doing one thing. It's all of these various different things playing into one another to create the pattern or the position. And that's how we look at our programs as well. Is like, if we wanted to improve the squat mechanics, the squat pattern, the position, how you feel, your performance within it, you can't just stretch out the hips and hope for something good to happen. You need to better understand how that pattern is created as you go through it, and ultimately kind of dissect that and address those things. So you're looking like, I've been doing this for a long time. You can look at any movement pattern and dissect it relatively easily if you understand the biomechanics. The deep squat is ankle dorsiflexion, knee flexion, hip internal rotation, hip flexion, pelvic positioning. Those things all play a role within it. Now, so everyone's going to have like a different combination of restrictions in certain areas, right? Like percentages of restrictions in certain areas. I've never really jumped into it that far, but there's commonalities on where the bigger limiting factors are generally, and addressing those things is naturally just going to help you achieve those positions better. So, you know, like what you're saying, when it comes to the overhead position, we're not just stretching out the shoulders. You got to make sure the thoracic extension is there to make sure that the scapula can glide properly across the rib cage, and your shoulder can actually find a logical stacked position. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in that bent position, right? And then because your shoulder was never able to get there, and you need to bend the elbow or shrug the shoulder in order to get the dumbbell in a place where you can better organize your center of mass to be able to actually move the load and perform the movement. Hopefully that didn't sound too nerdy. That felt a little nerdy at the end, but
all the time. It's welcome. It's welcome. You can always nerd out. People want to learn and understand. I want to learn and understand. So
I don't know
do
how
you guys
to explain these things in other
Just
ways.
throw fuck in there every now and again.
Yeah, it's fine. Just make it more
And then-
relatable.
yeah,
Just
The fucking scapulothoracic rhythm. Fucking shoulder extension.
What
so
Jeremy said.
do you feel, Stephen, I'll start with you. Do you feel like the obsession? So let's just say it's a shoulder thing. Just say I have a shoulder thing. Do you think the obsession of trying to fix just the shoulder is actually more detrimental to the rehab of the shoulder? You know, where it is like, if it's the banded stretching, or I need to go constantly to acupuncture or chiropractic or whatever, and you're only focusing on where the shoulder is, but you're not paying attention to everything else like Matt was talking about. Do you think that actually could be more detrimental to the recovery? Or do you think it's just lack of information, like lack of knowledge?
First off, I'll say that Matt's gonna have a way better answer to this than I will. Second off,
She asked you to.
I know, but you're gonna give me a better answer. Second of all, I'm not sure if detrimental is the right word. I don't think I can say that it, like, what is more or less detrimental, but I think there is something to where athletes tend to focus on the pain that gives them the most, the joint that gives them the most feedback. So when they do have an injury that's localized to a specific joint, they're going to focus on that joint, right? Whether that extends to knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, whatever.
Yep.
I've fallen through that trap before with my lower back, and I'm sure you have as well, where you just think that I need to do more cat-cows, I need to do more rotations of the lower back where that's localized to the injury.
No, I stayed away from all that. I did nothing of that.
Right. Well, I guess
I stood in a box. I just moved like this.
Just fucking RoboCop.
Yeah, I didn't do shit.
But for me, like, part of my rehab was always like, well, I just need to make sure that I'm warming up this specific thing. I need to get this specific thing stronger.
Yep.
And I never really took an opportunity to explore up and down the chain to see, like, okay, well, what are my hips doing that might be leading to this? What is my thoracic doing that might be also compensating in the lower back? And I guess you could always look at it through like an injury point of view, but I think in just terms of like stress reduction, right? If you move like shit through your thoracic and your hips, there's no wonder that you're setting yourself up for failure in the lower back position or anything between that. So I think that even divorce from like a rehab or trying to go through an injury, it could do nothing but help focusing on other aspects of the entire chain, because you're just going to reduce the amount of stress and load that you get in that specific area anyway. So I think you're right. We do tend to just like focus on that localized area. I think that there's a lot more to gain to not only focus on the area, but to also explore other parts of the body as well, because we move, as a chain and as a unit. So we should be focusing on the entire thing anyway. Yeah, I don't know if that
Matt?
did answer your question, but
Matt?
Yeah, like to kind of piggyback off what he said, I think what is the saying? The squeaky wheel gets the grease or gets the oil or whatever, right? If a particular joint or muscle is feeling pain, discomfort, stress, whatever, a lot of us are just going to want to just address that because that's just the loudest noise, right? It's like we got to address whatever's causing us issues. I think a lot of that comes from just a lack of understanding and awareness of how the body functions. Not to say that it's bad to address that area, because in many cases it's not. You need to be addressing the area. But I think a lot of it also stems from just not having a process to follow, or an awareness of what a good logical process looks like. Which again is awareness and education. But yeah, I think that it totally depends on what the injury is at the end of the day. But as Steve said, it's never going to hurt you to improve the function of the areas that are supportive of that, right? So again, like improving thoracic, improving scapular function is just going to help your shoulder move more efficiently, and you're just going to get more from your shoulder as a whole moving forward. So like it's definitely supportive of the rehab process. So for example, my adductor, I've just been I've been rehabbing that for 6 weeks now, and I'm going to continue doing so for another few weeks. I'm not just simply addressing the muscle, the adductor, right? I think it's Magnus that I'm dealing with right now. It's kind of taking over as a hamstring slightly. And so I'm really focusing on making sure that my glutes fire more effectively at the bottom of my squat to help me push out of my squat. And it's not just my adductor magnus and my hamstrings trying to take over to ultimately get me back into hip extension. It's my glutes are firing at the bottom of the squat, pushing me out. So it's like finding ways to better understand how your body functions as a whole is going to help you improve the rehab process. And this helps to have solid people in your corner to understand this stuff. Like I understand this stuff very well, and I still went to see a physical therapist, a buddy of mine in the area that I trust. And we sat there for multiple hours just talking about the situation and what could be happening. And I mean, I think it's super helpful to have somebody in your corner that you can bounce ideas off of, because like as much as there's still some things that you probably don't know too, right?
Yeah. And it's also a reminder that just because we're coaches, it doesn't mean that we stop and like put that ceiling on ourselves, where it's like we can walk through many doors of coaches for ourselves. What do we need? Whether it's a PT for you, a mindset coach, a therapist, a lifting coach, a running coach, or whatever the goal is, whatever the process is that you need to go through. It's a reminder that yes, we are available to help other people, but we also need that same support too, because you are very mindful. You've created your business around the body and how it works and how you work through things and retrain things and grow things and all this type of stuff. And even for you, you're like, hey, I need to go take some time for myself and go ask somebody else to bounce ideas off of, So I think you're right. I think it's this, and I've said this to you guys many times, a complete lack of knowledge that I had compared to flexibility, which is, can I touch my toes? Yes, I can touch my toes, or I can, ass to grass, I can do that. And mobility, which is how can I be down there on purpose, like with a purpose and with intention. And when it gets heavy, how I can move through that and be prepared for that. But one of the things, and this is kind of going back to what Steve was saying before, was the recovery. So for me, before working with you guys, I would stay away from things. So it's like, if my back hurts, I would stay away from everything and anything that would move my back, twist my back, anything like that, because I'm like, the more I move it, the more pain I'm going to get in. Now it's the complete opposite. after every open workout that I did, and even workouts that I do now, one, I can push my intensity to a level that I haven't been able to. But the first thing I reach for is something within primal mobility. So it's almost like I'm running towards it versus running away from it. You know, I finished a workout and it was a class workout, and it was one of my first deadlift workouts that I've done actually in a class. And when we were done, I laid on the floor and I went right into thoracic sweep. I was like, my back is torched right now. What do I need to do? And it was just the first thing that I thought of. I was like, get on the floor, move your spine, twist. And then I was able to get up off the ground and felt the DOMs later, like felt the soreness later where I was supposed to. So that's what's really changed for me. But within that, I kind of want to ask you guys about the pain conversation. I know we've talked about that a lot with my personal growth and my personal experience, but how do you support clients understanding what pain is and how it's not necessarily scary, but not pushing too far, if that makes sense? Like, how do you get them to meet in the middle of like, it doesn't have to be paralyzing, kind of run towards it, but don't swing too hard. You don't want to re-injure it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a fine line to have that kind of conversation with someone, right? Because everybody's different and their relationship with the pain is different than another person's. What's funny is when you came in, you were saying that you were avoiding all these movements, like no rotation whatsoever. And then you come into Primal and we're like, rotate that spine.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Every day. You're going to rotate your spine every day.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it is like, understand that you're not broken, you're just underexposed. It's so subjective, so I got to watch what I say, but nobody is really broken. They have the opportunity to improve and progress. It's more about where's that entry point, and this is really what rehab is. It's finding the most safest, comfortable, confident, logical entry point and building up from there. So for me, I had been doing Copenhagen planks for a long period of time. I wouldn't say that my adductors were weak at all. However, they were overused. It was like an overuse injury per se. And so what I had to do was kind of like take a step back and kind of go back to a little bit more of a foundational movement pattern and redesign how I performed in my squat. This doesn't necessarily mean that I had to completely eliminate certain movements that caused me discomfort. It meant that I needed to find comfort within those movement patterns and then retrain myself that those are still acceptable and accessible. They don't need to cause discomfort. And it's like what I was telling you, I don't know, a few months back, and I'm not sure if I'm making any sense right now, but I was telling you a few months back that you were saying that you were afraid of hinging any kind of deadlift movement or loading any kind of deadlift movement was just very scary, holding a barbell, an empty bar. And I was like, okay, so let's take a step back from that position, find a wall behind you, unloaded. You're just going to hinge until you hit your glutes on the wall and then squeeze your glutes and actively pull yourself out of that hinge position. And it's like, if you could do 50 reps there and not experience your pain, then naturally your nervous system is gonna be like, okay, it's not the hinge pattern that's really that dangerous. It's more just like an internal dialogue, an internal story that's kind of been told over the years. And slowly you start working your way towards the pattern or the progression point of the pattern that you're able to sustain loading on that barbell. And now you're deadlifting with weight on the bar, less fear, you're cleaning, less fear. And a lot of that comes from just, I think, being exposed to the pattern and the positions to a point where it's pain-free and then building back up from there. So that's what a lot of it is just finding that entry point and building up from there. So a lot of times what that is just reduce load, reduce range. And, you know, like for you, it was like, my advice to you, I'm not sure if you took that advice or not, but it was like,
I did.
Stand like 8 inches away from the wall and just
Mhm.
hinge from that point. It's not your max hinge range. You could hinge further than that, but you're going to start there. And then
Yep.
that's just like, oh, yeah, I could do 100 reps here, no problem, pain free.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
okay, now we're going to go 12 inches, a foot from the wall, and you're going to perform it the same way. Now we're getting a little closer to like max hinge range, and you got to start just working through that. And then you just like, that's what progressive overload looks like, you know?
Yep. Well, that's what I do with the elephant walks. I send my butt back and I keep my butt on the wall and I just slowly move. Still not adding weight, but I know myself enough to where I'm like, with this particular one, I need to start here. Like, and I know that. And I know anything that has to do with my hamstrings, because you and I have talked about that a lot. Like, I need to start like from the beginning, like slow, controlled, not even straightening my legs all the way. And in some of the, I think we had a hinge today too, like a lunge. I forget what it was, but I still don't straighten. Not the good mornings. No, it was, yeah. With the, yep, stretch. No, yep. So I don't straighten my leg all the way. I still keep it a little bit bent and really try to sit back and actually feel it in my glutes. And that's where I, have said many times that I'm starting to feel everything in my glutes like I'm supposed to. I don't feel it all in my back. Or if I feel it in my back, it's funny, I get cramping around my lats. Like, I get so much cramping at the bottom of my lats, not so much by my lower back anymore. Where
the cramping is so interesting. It's such a fascinating response from the body. It's like, oh shit, we're in uncharted territory here. Let's try to restrict any more movement and build some stability. Like, that's kind of what the body's doing, is like freaking out and like, okay, time to contract things so that we don't go any further from here.
You're going to laugh because real quick, Steven, and I want to hear what you say. It's so funny when I do a really slow controlled cat cow, I get cramps in the top of my ribs every time. I get like this super cramp and I have to like slowly get myself out of it for like the first two. And then I start to really, because also too, I'm slowing everything down. I'm not just moving through what the positions are supposed to be. Like, you tell me I'm supposed to feel every vertebrae. I'm trying to feel every single vertebrae as I go to the cat and the cow. You know what I mean? So, but go ahead, Steve, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I know the uncomforting feeling that a lat cramp is. I had a double lat cramp once. I was trying to show a class basically what the primal press down to the ground with the elbow
in the middle of the class.
And I did it, and it was like just like first thing in the morning. I was kind of just like, I integrated into the warm up, and the warm up was simple enough. I didn't really need to like specifically demo anything. I was like, so you can press into, and then I had like a lat cramp, and it was just like, it was probably like an equivalent of like a panic attack. I was just like, I can't breathe. And I try to play it off cool, and they're like, "Why is he talking so fast?"
You're like, "I'm okay."
Flailing
apart. It was so weird though.
Yeah, you're on stage trying to demo something, and everyone's looking at you like, something's up here, dude. You're not playing it off too well, just sweating.
Oh man, I sweat. I thought I was gonna pass out.
Just full sweat. Well, Steve, I wanted to get your opinion on the whole pain thing. Like, how do you know, like, and you can even say for you, not necessarily for anybody else, but like, how do you know when to not push too far past, like, if you're feeling any sort of pain?
I'll speak from experience, and I don't know if this is just maybe the day, or maybe this is just how I think. I like to think in singular words. So one word that jumps out at me, just generally,
one word for the day.
Any more than that, I can't follow.
I like to think in singular words. So there's one that jumps out at me when you mention that is just curiosity. I think in my own journey through mobility, I think that's probably like the biggest through thread that I've had through every single mobility workout that I've done that I think has brought me a lot, where I've learned a lot about, especially injury, was just being curious. I think that goes along with what Matt was saying in terms of like finding an entry point, so that when you do encounter some sort of feedback with your body saying like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, instead of being fearful of it and shying away, be like, well, okay, but what is it about that? Like, is it because I loaded it this way? Is it because I, didn't properly approach it? Just becoming curious in those situations, I think I have found it immensely helpful, because it just kind of takes away the fear. You're no longer be like, I just need to avoid that completely. You want to learn more about it. And I think in my own journey, that's been such a huge reframe, because I did have moments where I was afraid of anything happening to the point where I'm just going to avoid it altogether. It's just, yeah, it's not fun, but I think that reframe really helps.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this a lot, and none of us are coming to this conversation from a doctor's perspective. Like, none of us are medical, but so much of the conversation from medical professionals is just don't do anything. So there is that fear of, with us working with clients that are coming to us with injuries, with situations and whatever, and the first thing they say is, well, my doctor said I can't do this. And so it's like, how do you navigate refraining that mindset change, which you've gone through and I've gone through, and Matt, you're going through that, from your own perspective now. Like, how do you manage that, knowing that the body moves better when it's moving in all of the which ways that it's supposed to, versus staying in that box, and it's a battle. It's a challenge that we have to, face, not just for ourselves, but for the, the people that we try to help. It's still very frustrating though, for me.
Yeah,
I don't know about you guys.
It's not even just doctors. I think that's just like a natural reaction that people have, is like to avoid the pain. And that's what's been most fascinating about the process I'm going through right now. Again, this is not my first injury and dealing with that. That's actually where Primal came from. Was me
was it like your 5 dislocations in your shoulder or whatever it was?
5, yeah. I would have been lucky to just have 5. There was like a brief stint, and I say brief as in it was like a year and a half, where I was dealing with 3 different things at once that were extremely debilitating. So that was when I really started diving deeper into this and created everything like the Primal method, and just taking bits and pieces from the various different methodologies that I believed in, and just whatever made the most sense to me, and utilizing that for mobility training. And again, like, I think most people seem to avoid the thing that is causing them discomfort. That's like a natural human reaction, is to not poke the bear, So it's like, I think that's just like generally what we're conditioned to do, is to avoid discomfort. But we also know that we're like, us 3 in particular, and everybody in this chat, is not normal humans anyways. Like, we seek discomfort in multiple different ways. And I think that that's one thing that Primal is really speaking to for a lot of these people, a lot of people that are coming in and loving the training. Not everybody loves it, but that's probably because they came in with the wrong expectations. But I think what's speaking to a lot of people is that this shit is not meant to be easy, and it's literally designed to increase your capacity within deeper ranges of motion. It's designed to expose your weaknesses and fucking turn them into strengths, right? And that's something that is naturally highly uncomfortable and challenging, and is going to expose, like, through that journey of doing that and becoming more comfortable in those ranges, you're going to be exposed to your pains and your discomforts along the way, and find those weaknesses. And it's like, okay, this is where some work needs to be done, right? So I think that's just part of the game.
Perfect spot, if I can get my mouse to move, to bring in this.
Uh-oh.
It always scares the shit out of me. Like, what's coming?
Potentially controversial here, but mobility can be hard.
You're really not going to find any mobility gains at the bottom of the pigeon pose.
I think with CrossFit being such a hard sport, that we've kind of identified as passive recovery-based mobility as the key to getting better. But if you're not sweating, if you're not trying, you're not building any adaptations. And I think going through the motions for your mobility is not going to make you any better in the long term. Why is it that we expect for intensity to equal adaptation everywhere else in our life? Mobility, it should feel good. Look, this is not to say that just because it's hard, it means it'll work. But the intensity and the focus in which you bring to your session is going to make all the difference. Stop just randomly stretching your muscles and get active in those positions instead.
I was half expecting to hear a little fart squeak out at the end there.
The pancake, that's the worst. That movement is the worst ever.
I love it.
The
It's
worst.
one of my favorites.
Oh God, it's so bad. I just started with the PVC pipe where I don't use my hands anymore because that shit is so challenging. But that's exactly what you're talking about. CrossFit's really difficult. And to get better at CrossFit, it's going to take a lot of hard work in CrossFit. Your mobility is the same.
Yep.
You know, if you're just passively moving, but between positions and rolling out and, again, touching your toes and putting your arms above your head and doing your arm circles or whatever it is, like if you're not actually working and doing the hard work within the mobility, how do you expect it to be able to translate to the entire package? It's like when you are building a house, the foundation's the most important part. If the foundation's not solid, the house is it doesn't matter how pretty the house is, it's gonna collapse if it's not sturdy. And that's what mobility is. That's what people are missing. And at least from my perspective. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely the foundation. Luckily for us, unlike a house where if the foundation is shit, you're probably fucked. In a way, you can
You
with
go
mobility, you can address the foundation while you're building the house and replacing the furniture and changing the carpets, the drapes, whatever. So that's good news. But I think I think you're right. It's really like the intensity and the intentionality that I think is going to make the difference there, though.
Mhm.
And I think seeing that thread between both CrossFit, or you could extend that to just fitness in general, but CrossFit defining fitness itself, but then also shouting out that intensity equals the adaptation. That's exactly what happens with mobility. The point being that intensity is really what matters, and I think that's where a lot of people will miss the mark. They just go through the motions with their mobility. I'll often use the analogy of Fran, right? Like if you were coaching me and I told you that I just did Fran RX for the first time, you'd probably be pretty stoked for me. But then if I told you that I did it in 25 and a half minutes, you'd be like, I mean, okay, cool, but you
Yeah,
completely
no
fucking missed the
longer
mark,
excited for you.
right? No longer excited for
excited.
you.
Yep.
You just did a bunch of thrusters and a bunch of pull-ups, which cool that you did, but you completely missed the stimulus of that workout specifically.
Mhm.
That's how I like to approach mobility. There's a certain stimulus that you need to get, and finding an entry point. So like scaling it to a point where you can get a 4 to 5 minute scale time where you're lying on the floor and collapsing and dying, and it's going to be agonizing for the next 25 minutes while you're rolling around. Like that's the stimulus you're looking for. And I think that's the most important thing that comes through what we're trying to do with mobility a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think two different things that I talk about frequently in my content is that there's the way most people approach their mobility training is lacking not only intensity but intention, right? Like it's about, and another thing I say is that it's not about the stretch or the depth of the stretch that you're getting. It's more about the quality of your muscular engagement within the deep stretch position. So if that means that you need to reduce your range of motion slightly in order to get more muscular engagement, which helps you naturally increase the intensity, you're going to get so much more out of that particular exercise as opposed to just like fucking going into the deepest stretch possible, probably compensating like crazy to try and get even deeper than you probably should be, and then getting like a half-ass muscle contraction, muscular engagement within that position. You're not really going to have that influence over your nervous system or your muscle tissues and tendons within that deep position as a result of that. So intensity is huge, and intention is just as key within that as well. And this is a lot of why we put so much emphasis in our training on intention and like understanding the purpose of the exercise and what we're trying to achieve here, and then programming as well with a set RPE that we're trying to achieve, so that you understand this should feel like a 9 out of 10, this should feel like an 8 out of 10, or sometimes we're fucking going for a 10 out of 10. This should be as basically as hard as it could be. And because a lot of people, when they approach mobility, it's like they're looking for relief in the process. They're just looking for something that feels nice. And it's like, I don't want to stretch to the point where it feels uncomfortable. I want to first stretch to the point where it's like a deep stretch, but it still feels like therapeutic in a way. And there's times for that, more so like that. There's a place for that more so in recovery, in my opinion. That's a good approach for recovery. But when it comes to actually driving adaptation for your deep ranges of motion and learning how to control those ranges and getting stronger to a point where you get into those positions or those positions are exposed under the barbell or in the gym, you're going to be fine there. You're going to feel far more capable.
Yeah. Fran shaming with the 26 minutes.
Hey, no value judgment there. I was just saying.
Oh my God, what is wrong with this mouse? Sorry. Hi, babe. Oh, she's still at work. Who came up with the name Cat Cow? I bet it was Steve.
I just I understand the cat. I don't understand the cow part.
They got some weird ass spines, I guess.
I guess so.
I
Bernie,
name a lot of
Colleen,
things in our library, but I did not name that.
and those names are really funny. Colleen, now that you are a lumberjack, thanks to Primal, have it detracted from your robot. No, I still have those skills. Just checking out any other questions. I think we had one up here that Joseph's making fun of the way that I talk as per usual.
Somebody in the comments reiterated the word adductor magnus, and I read it and I was like, that sounds like a fucking transformer.
Bernie Gannon.
Adductor
Bernie
magnus.
Gannon.
If you have that.
Yep. All right, I think that's it. That's all I got for you guys. I feel great. My training's been really good. I had probably the most intense, other than the open. I challenged myself yesterday to cleans and box jump overs. I was able to cycle them. And this morning is the first day I woke up with a little bit of nervy pain in my hip and in my back, which was almost shocking because I've had more days without it now than I have with it. I have a lot more pain-free days. I know I tell you guys that often, but I wanted to share it with everybody. You really have given me my life back. And I know that there's so much more work to do. But being able to go to CrossFit, being able to run around with my kid, waking up and not in pain, being able to, Garrett and I even lifted, we got the baby a new dresser, and her and I lifted a dresser together, and I was able to help her with it because my back didn't give out. Like I was able to get it into the car, and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful.
I think the
for
coolest
both of you
part is, well, it's awesome to have an influence on that with you. But I think the coolest part is that it's changed your perspective around how you approach your pain now. So it's not that your pain is gone completely. It's still there occasionally.
Yeah.
It's still showing up, but you're addressing it, or you have a different relationship with it now, which is the coolest part, I think. And that right there is what's most life-changing, I think.
Yeah.
It's like now whenever you experience pain in the future, because pain is part of the human experience, we're naturally going to experience that throughout our life in various different ways, emotional in some cases. But when you're experiencing that, you're going to respond differently to it now moving forward, and that is naturally going to help reduce. I mean, I could be completely wrong here, but just where my head's going at right now is one of the reasons, or one of the things that potentially caused you to get to the point where you were, was completely avoiding it entirely.
100%.
So, it's going to expedite the process of you overcoming future pains, just because you're not going to fear it the same way, and you're going to address it and, kind of like not give it the same kind of voice that it would have had previously.
Yeah, I really don't. Yeah, I like that. I have conversations, I guess you could say, with my pain, whereas before I would completely avoid the conversations. It was like, it's painful, and there's only one thing that I could do is try to find that relief, like whether it's sitting on the heating pad, whether it's, jumping in an ice bath, whether it's rolling or cupping or laying. I mean, I used to lay on a lacrosse ball for hours, which of course was just trying to give me any sort of release. But then I have this huge fucking bruise on my back. Like it's not actually helping. But I really have conversations with what's going on. So I'm much more in tune with my body.
I'm very curious because you had been dealing with your situation for over a decade. So
Yeah.
what made you, and the process you went through with Primal, the approach, I should say, is very different from anything you had been doing previously, whereas it was kind of more avoidance based. And you came to Primal and it was very much like, no, expose it, get into it. Let's
Yep.
let's tease it a little bit. I'm
Mhm.
curious to know what made you open to accepting that, considering it was like the contrast between those two things is like they're polar opposites. Was it you were just at a point where you're like, I'll fucking try anything, I'm so sick of this? Or was there something else in your life that made you willing to lean into a new approach that was so vastly different?
I would say that the conversation I had with Rolo and and the first conversation, yeah, that's my wife knows me very well. I can't believe she trusted you that fast. Yeah, I mean that's really what it is. I would say the conversation with Rolo was like opening the door, but Matt, the first conversation that you and I had together was really what got me through the door. And again, me being so honest with you about all of the things that I have tried and how I didn't think that this was going to work. And it was kind of like it was a last stitch effort, but I really wasn't convinced that it was going to work. But I kind of wanted to try it because it was something different. And I saw what Rolo was sharing on social media or whatever. So it really was the first conversation that you and I had where you were like, let's just do this, and you listened to what I was saying. You didn't just say that one, it wasn't going to change, that this is just going to be what it's going to be. You're just going to be in pain all the time. It was the fact that you really were invested in the conversation that I was having. So it really was a building of trust. And as Garrett said, she can't believe I trusted you as fast. I can't believe that I trusted you or this program as fast either, because there is that huge wall of like, nothing is going to work. Nothing. It's almost like, I'm going to try this. I'll do the free trial. I'll sign up for a little bit like I always do with these things. And I stay with it for a little bit and then nothing changes. And so I was like, it's not going to work. But after the first conversation that we had, I was like, okay, I'm really going to commit to this. Like, I'm really going to commit to what is written, what is said, have these conversations with you constantly, consistently, and then meeting Steve and meeting Becca and having their support too. It's just like, I'm committed to this and you guys are committed to me. It was just a very different kind of relationship conversation that got me to trust you guys enough to trust this program. And I also couldn't believe how quickly I started to see results. Taking that phone call when I was in Crash, like when I was at Crash and I was like, hey, like I was in so much pain. I had not been in that much pain to that intensity for as long as I was for a very long time. The fact that I texted you and I was like, hey, I'm going through some shit right now. Like, can you talk? And you were like, give me 5 minutes. And then you called me and we sat on the phone for a quick conversation and you were able to be like, okay, remember like where you are, what you're doing. I flew on a plane, which is not comfortable. I'm sleeping on beds. That's not comfortable. I'm at an event running around, stressed out, like all of these things. But you took the time to talk to me through that, gave me just enough to what I needed to be able to get through that weekend. And then I was okay. So it really was trusting you with the investment that you gave to me that really got me to trust Primal with all the results that I've gotten. So
yeah, I guess that answers the next question, because I was curious to know, was it results that also led you to dive into it as well? Like the trust. There must have been something there where it was within a short period of time that you experienced something that had you trusting even further. So I was curious to know what that was, because your symptoms are very sensitive. You would experience nerve pain, very like easily excitable, easily triggered.
Mm-hmm.
You would experience your discomfort like there wasn't much that would cause it. And so I was curious to know, when did you feel that? But it must have been just like kind of a build up kind of thing. So
yeah, because I don't know exactly like when it was that really started to change, but I just kind of woke up. I think I told you. I think I texted you guys and I was like, I woke up with no pain today and I don't know what to do with this. Like,
yeah.
I mean, and what was
it's
that?
Almost concerning.
Yeah, what was that? Like 2 months in,
Why
maybe
can't I
2.5-ish months in that I woke up and I was like, I don't have any pain. Like I could just stand straight up. I didn't have to like, like slowly push your hips forward, like try to stand up as straight as you can, but kind of hunched because your hips are so tight and your back is so sore and in pain. I mean, that was really kind of like I think this is actually really working. Like this is actually helping,
right.
But I remember those days where it was like, I'm in a lot of pain and I would force myself to do Primal. And of course it's the days where it's like, it's the world's greatest stretch or it's a cat cow, which I'm like, God, this is so fucking painful, but let me just move through it slowly. Or it was a tactical frog, and I was like, God, like this just is so messed up on my hips right now. But I started the conversation again, going back to the conversation I have with my pain and the conversation I have with my body now, where it wasn't so much like I'm in pain, so I have to turn around and run away. It's like, I'm in pain now. Let me lean into what this is and try to figure out what I need. And so there were days when I would just do something else. Like on the weekends, you have like the optional ones. For the first couple weekends, I would just do those 2 or 3 movements that I knew would help. So it usually was the flow, the frog, I think the 90 rotation where one leg is straight and the other one rotates, and then some sort of thoracic. And honestly, the kneeling one where you twist and you do, I forget what it's called, but you're kneeling and then you twist and you kind of rotate through each part or whatever. That's one of my favorite ones to do even now, today, where it's like, okay, I need to warm up my spine more than whatever class warm up's going to be. And then I usually do the full Primal workout afterwards. But the kneeling one, the one on the rig where you hold and you open up the thoracic that way, like I kind of just picked a couple things that I knew would help me in that moment. And I remember doing it in my living room in so much pain that I was like, I also think I got to a point where I was like, this has to work. Like I was so defeated that when I started to invest in this for myself, and after the conversations we had, it was like, I need this to work. Like I need this to work. And the only way it was going to work was if I was willing to put in the time and effort to do it. So yes, I always, appreciate you guys for the guidance, but you always say like, it goes down to you. Like I'm the one that has to show up every day.
For sure.
You guys are there. You guys show up as coaches and support. But if I don't show up for myself every day, it doesn't matter how many times you guys show up, So I think it got to a point where it went from the mistrust to desperation to where it just needed to work. And the only way I was going to get from desperation to commitment was if I just stayed in it. And that's where I am now.
I find it super interesting the way you're chatting about your pain as well. And, how we've been talking about the nervous system and how a lot of mobility training really is just a game of influencing the nervous system, having an influence over it. And it's funny because like the way we're discussing this, it's like I'm seeing it now as it's almost like a third person. Like it's a separate person. It's like you have you're you, and then you have your nervous system, which is kind of like driving everything behind the scenes for you. And it's really interesting, the analogy we're using about like having a conversation with your pain and, almost seeing these things as 2 different entities, 2 different people, which is like, it's sounding really strange that I'm talking about it this way, but
it doesn't though. Because I think it brings a lot of clarity to a lot of you can with different parts. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's a conversation between 2 people with my pain and my person, but I've also done a lot of work like mindset stuff and childhood stuff where there's a separation between me as a child and me as an adult. And so I think it is in a way very helpful to to give distinction to what they are, because if not, they completely wrap themselves in each other, and there's no way to separate if you're unwilling to separate the two and do the work to separate the two. So I had such success in like my childhood and my adult version to be able to separate the two, to be able to navigate, you know, whatever comes up with that shit. Now that we're talking about it, it almost seems natural for me to be able to separate the two with my pain and my body, because it brings more awareness to who's showing up right now. Okay, pain's in front. Why is pain in front? And then I'm more clear to be able to have the conversation with my pain versus the pain being so completely consumed that I can't pull the two of them apart from each other. You know, so is like, as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, this kind of separation of two has helped me before. It kind of makes sense that I would take the same road to get here within this training with Primal.
Yeah, I mean, and you talk to anybody who has a successful relationship, and they'll tell you number one is communication is key. Like that's the number one rule to a successful relationship is having strong communication. And it's interesting that, you know, we're using the analogy of talking to your pain. It's like, if you want to improve that relationship, you need to be able to confront it and have the challenging conversations like we're discussing, which again, to me is like not shying away or fearing the pain, but instead seeing it for what it is, as it's often just a signal and just like, it's literally just a tool your body's using to protect you. And to be able to ultimately have an influence over it, you need to expose it, confront it, and deal with it at face value. And I think that's something that we're really proud of at Primal too, is that we don't shy away from the things that can possibly generally cause some, not fear, but avoidance, like real challenge, you know, like that's one thing that we do a lot of is like, we aim to expose those weaknesses. And I've said this countless times now. It's like, think about getting into a particular stretch. And for me, I'm thinking like hip flexor or hamstring stretches. One of the most common things for people to do when they start to feel like an intense stretch in those positions is to turn away from it. Right. And that's a compensation that ultimately you may not even realize that you're doing it. And that is naturally just taking some of the intensity away from the stretch, because you're ultimately creating a little bit more laxity within the muscles as you do that, moving away from it, tilting your pelvis away from it. Whereas if you were to rotate towards it and really expose that stretch, you're going to feel that intensity kind of skyrockets a little bit, and you're going to get more out of it. And that's one thing that we're constantly like really trying to drive home with everything that we do is like, you watch the training videos in our programming, they're longer than what you would probably see in like most other programs. Like I've followed many different CrossFit and, you know, training protocols over the years, and you watch the videos and it's about 15 seconds of watching somebody perform it. There's no intentional cue behind it. There's no explanation behind it, which is fine. Like we're generally, if you have decent experience in the gym, you know how to perform like a dumbbell bench press to get like a good solid contraction from your chest, get the stretch through the pecs, perform the movement, and get what you need out of that. But when it comes to mobility training, it's often such like an underutilized style of training, and these positions are often so vastly avoided. People just completely avoid getting into these positions. So we dive deep into that as like, this is what you should feel. This is what you shouldn't feel. Be cautious of this compensation where you're going to, you know, what I was saying is tilt your pelvis away. We want to tilt towards it instead. Like,
yes.
Intention's so fucking key for these things. And I'm just such a stickler for that. Whenever somebody's posting a video in the community and they're moving quickly, I'm like, let's disregard all the other shit that could possibly be going on here. Just slow down. You're going to get so much more out of it just by slowing down.
Yep. And that's what it is. You are so intentional with each individual person, and you take the time to be so intentional where it is something like, you know, if you're supposed to be sitting upright, but you can't get whatever the intention of that movement is, what do you say? Just lean back a little bit. You're still going to get the intention of it, but maybe, and then we'll work back up to where that is. You know what I mean? For me, it's don't go down into my full range of motion. It's more challenging for me to stay up away from that full range of motion. That's where I need to work it, where it might not look like that I am in full depth all the time, where I, that kind of stuff.
Joseph.
Oh, Joseph. Matt scolded me for not going slow enough a
Yes.
couple of times. I mean,
What
slow
can I
down,
say?
man. Slow down.
Slower, Joseph.
Yeah, but it does. It goes
Talk
back to
dirty.
the foundation of what you guys really drive home, is that there's intention with everything. And it's like, if you're supposed to be pressing down in the feet, that's where the focus goes. You know what I mean? Like that's where you want the intention to go, which is going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. And it comes down to the information that you guys give us, and it's helpful. It's changing lives out here. So
A lot of mobility training, like what we're trying to achieve with it, is a better relationship with your, not necessarily just your body, but like the positions where you often just lose control, where they're very unfamiliar, they're foreign, you don't know how to act when you're within them. That is what we're entirely trying to improve, is how you can deal with your ability to manage those positions, especially under fatigue. So if you go quickly through your reps, there's no way you're ever going to develop a relationship with those deeper ranges of motion. You need time within those for your body to even know how to contract a muscle while you're there. That's one of the greatest benefits behind isometric exercises. You're within those positions for extended periods of time, learning how to contract your muscles, and ultimately just instilling some kind of stimulus right there. It's easily progressible, if that's a word, because you just ultimately apply progressive overload directly to that. And there's no, like, you can train specific angles, specific positions. Yeah. Anyways, now we're going down a different rabbit hole,
but I think that is why Primal and CrossFit really do speak the same language, right? Because what is the number one thing that people see about CrossFit? It's scary. They get scared. They're not going to come in the door. I can never do that. This isn't going to help me. And then what ends up happening?
It's hard. It's chaos. It's
right.
Crazy.
Exactly. And so I know you didn't want to necessarily use the word fear, but I think there is a little bit of a driving force if there is fear, because you do avoid that. Whereas the conversation is being aware of the fear and knowing that it's going to be okay on the other side. In whatever journey that looks like. My journey with a back injury is different than what Steve's is. Even though they're the same movements that you're providing for us, we're still going to go through that journey way differently. And the bigger meaning is that, or the biggest aha is like, it will be okay. It's going to take some time to get there, but then see what you can do on the other side of that little hurdle. Okay, now we're on this side. Now what? Let's go to the next one. Okay, that one's a little too far. Let's back it up with just a little bit. You know what I mean? So it is retraining the body, like you were saying, to really face these fears and know that it's going to be okay on the other side through the hard work that you're going to do.
Yeah, I think that, like, just in general, that's where a lot of the gains as humans are too. Is like getting out of your comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the best things about training in general, not necessarily just CrossFit. I don't think that's exclusive to CrossFit. I mean, CrossFit does an amazing job at that, obviously, but I think training in general naturally exposes like discomfort, especially CrossFit does it so well because of the high intensity. It's extremely uncomfortable for a prolonged duration of time, but I think training, multiple different ways of training, is so good for that, especially when you go from something that you start to get really good at and dive into like a whole new version of training. Like, for example, if you're incredible at Olympic weightlifting and, Olympian, you're world class at it, and then you go into calisthenics and you're like, I can't fucking hold a position to save my life, and you're like shaking like crazy, and it's just really interesting how that works. But
next time I'm in Ottawa, we're doing a Pilates class, just so you know.
A Pilates class?
Joke's on you. I've been doing Pilates my whole life, bro.
You better videotape that. I want to see those.
What's funny is Sousa he sent me a link that he plugged Primal in one of his conversations, and he was talking to Savon about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to explain it. I think it's kind of like Pilates," and immediately I was like, "Fuck."
I remember
What am
that.
I doing?
You're like, no. You have to send him like a description. Like, you can only read this description on people's shows.
Yeah. I mean, I was like super appreciative that he actually is trying out and like training Primal and like doing
Yeah.
the work and stuff. But I immediately sent him like an explanation of what we are and yeah.
How it's not Pilates.
Can we
Yeah.
get a request to have Matt on a reformer for the next the AI generated thumbnails?
Just pulling my legs
Yes.
directly behind my
Yes,
head.
I will put him on. I will
me
make sure that
spotting him?
Garrett
Yeah,
makes
thank
the AI. Well, I
Just
had
the
her
big old
first
smile,
try. I had her, and I'll send them to you guys. I wanted her to put you guys in like a Jane Fonda class, and it did not turn out right. They're hilarious, but they didn't turn out
Instead,
right.
we're like fucking like, oh.
Yep. I was like, okay,
Just
put him in the yoga
meditating.
pose. And I
And the
just love
smiles,
Steve's
too.
eyes are just closed, just looking
Yeah.
up.
He's like, God, this is good.
They're so
All right,
good.
guys, I gotta run.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. The crew will be back later on tonight to talk Jeremy's love line. So if you're around, make sure you come hang out in the chat. We'll see you guys next time. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
I'll be there.